everyone. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Nick.
And you're listening to It Takes Two, the podcast where two people take two movies with the same plot or premise and watch and discuss them.
And this is another remake episode.
Yes.
The remake being Oldboy, being the original being Oldboy, the original South Korean film from 2003, which is a very dark and traumatizing masterpiece, and then a horrible whitewashing version from 2013.
Yeah.
I will make this very clear right this second.
Mm-hmm.
Watch Oldboy if you ever want to see this movie. Watch it
before you listen to this.
Don't listen to this episode if you haven't seen the movie.
Absolutely. I was going to say something similar because I think it'll be very difficult to discuss these movies without discussing
anything that happens in the movie.
Yeah, everything is a spoiler. I don't know if I can in good conscience recommend people watch Oldboy either version. I will say the original. If you're going to watch either, watch the original, obviously.
Don't watch the remake.
It is very good.
Yeah, it's a fantastically made film.
But it is violent, gory, very disturbing. There is not an insignificant amount of body horror. There are...
psychological horror.
Yeah, and it becomes almost more disturbing the further it goes.
Yeah.
And if you think you have an idea of the level of disturbing in it, amplify that.
Yeah.
So if you're not into those kind of films, you're not going to want to watch this, I think.
Yeah.
I agree that it's a good movie. It's a well-made film. Well, definitely well written.
Yeah.
But it's not one that I'm going to be going, hey, everyone should watch this movie. And this is coming from the person who thinks everyone should watch Sorry to Bother You, which is also a disturbing and violent movie.
So I reiterate one more time, if you ever want to, in your entire life, watch this movie, do not listen to this podcast until you've seen the movie.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Okay.
First thing I want to say about comparing these movies is that I don't think I've ever seen an adaptation of something miss so many points. It's like, I understand that adapting or like doing a remake of something, you're going to make changes, but the things they kept in often were kind of irrelevant, and the things they changed were like the core point of the movie.
It's almost like the people who made the remake, Spike Lee, hasn't made I can't name a single movie that he's ever made that I actually enjoyed. And it's almost like it's 100% whitewashing. It's like
which is ironic considering it's not a white director.
It's awful. It's awful in a way where it completely misses every single point of the original. Except for the story. The story is the same, but they just miss everything that actually makes the story good.
The story isn't even... Because they change... they change really key elements of the story and make it into something that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Also, another thing I want to say about the remake is, listen, I love...
Shelter Copley.
I love Chappie, and I love District 9. And I think everything else I've ever seen Sharlto Copley in, he is dreadful. He's absolutely awful. And I'm so sorry. I've seen Elysium. Is that what you're going to ask?
Yeah.
I don't like him in Elysium.
I love him in Elysium.
Elysium and Europa Report, he's bearable.
Yeah.
Maleficent and Oldboy is one of the worst actors I've ever seen. This is a guy with range in that, but the range isn't that he can play a range of characters. The range is that he can be great in one thing and absolutely terrible in other films. And the key seems to be making him be not South African.
Yeah.
When he's playing a South African, he can do it.
Yeah.
The second you say, oh, you're going to be something else, it's like, what is this voice, and why? And is he concentrating so hard on trying to do an accent that he forgets to act?
Yeah.
I have no idea where his character is supposed to be from in this movie, because it's set in America. Everyone else is American. He went to American high school, and then has like the most indistinguishable fake British accent for no reason.
Yeah.
And it makes plot points not make sense. There are plot holes created by the fact that he has that weird accent, because like the guy hears his voice and then goes like looking at this list of clearly American people. It's like none of these are going to be that guy.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense. Anyway.
When you have Korean people set in South Korea speaking Korean to each other, it's kind of hard to like differentiate between people, but you get like this guy who's trying to do sort of like almost like a Gary Oldman like character. It's like that's what it feels to me. It wasn't that he was given a script and given direction by the director. He was just told pretend to be Gary Oldman.
Yeah, and I think you've nailed it there, which is direction, because his performance in this makes me really appreciate Neil Blomkamp as a director, because he must have directed him so well to get him to do good performances. I don't understand it. Like, I absolutely love his performance as Chappie. It's one of my, like, I just love it. I think he's fantastic in that role. I don't understand how he is in this movie. And that was how I felt when I watched Maleficent as well. I was like, really? This is Chappie?
It's interesting to me because the only parallel I can see of just someone getting away with terrible acting is one of my favourite actors of all time, which is... No, you think I'm going to say Nicolas Cage.
I was going to say Vin Diesel is what I thought you were going to say.
No. Until that case is currently held against Vin Diesel is clear, I'm putting him in a cupboard and leaving him to the side.
I haven't even heard about that, but I'm not shocked.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, it's Keanu Reeves.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Keanu Reeves can act.
Mm-hmm.
He is a good actor. The problem is when it comes to doing accents...
No, he can't do it.
Have you've seen Bram Stoker's Dracula?
Of course I've seen Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's awful. It's awful.
But, like, that's a thing that you learn when you do it once and go, oh, shouldn't do that again.
Yeah.
So, I think... But then again, I think Maleficent and Oldboy came out around the same time.
Right.
So maybe... whichever one came out first hadn't been released yet when the other one came out, and then maybe afterwards. I haven't looked too much into his career, because Chappie did come out after both those films.
Right.
And he was great in that.
Yeah. But again, he's just being South African.
Yeah. Well, he's just fantastic in Chappie. I love Chappie.
All right. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. Both of these movies, I'll be talking about them simultaneously. So, original, remake, both establish a character who's a drunk. I think original does it so much better.
Yeah, I don't understand what Josh Brolin was going for.
Josh Brolin's whole performance in the beginning of the movie
is bizarre. I literally wrote a note where I was just saying, is Josh Brolin really bad at acting drunk, or has he been directed to really ham it up? Yeah. I feel like it's the latter.
Yeah.
I think that it's like, because obviously in a Korean movie you can get away with that more, because that is like an aspect of, K-dramas and things that people do really ham up emotions, and there is like stereotype drunk characters and things like that. But to see Josh Brolin do it and also try to be like a serious role, it was just like bizarre. It was really strange.
Honestly, every single performance in that movie is awful.
I think Elizabeth Olsen did all right compared to everyone else.
Yeah, but compared to everybody else, but compared to her counterpart in the original.
Oh yes, yeah, that's a different story.
It's everything like it. This is one of the things that I love South Korean movies.
Mm-hmm.
I have not watched a single one where I've gone, oh, that was average. They've all been better than the Western counterparts of the same...
In fairness, you're probably watching specifically good Korean movies.
That's true.
Whereas you watch a much wider range of...
True, that might be a fact. But, if I was instantly told I had to make a list of 10 movies that were in a foreign language, I think 8 of them would be South Korean.
How many of them would be by the same director?
4 or 5.
Yeah. See, this is what I'm talking about, is that you like largely just Bong Joon-ho's movies, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And he's fantastic filmmaker, absolutely fantastic. But that would be like someone for whom English is not a native language
and only watching Spielberg movies.
Yeah, or that kind of equivalent where they're like, oh, I can name 5 or 6 American movies that are great, and it's like, oh, well, they're all by the same director.
Yeah. So maybe that's my problem. We did go through a thing, and we should continue that thing of binging, but we ended up binging Kiwi films for a while.
Oh yeah.
In our spare time.
I think that we went to see Train to Busan in Space Place.
That's true.
And then after that, you were like, want to watch more Korean movies?
Yeah.
So we did watch a few.
Yeah. God, that's such a good movie.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Peninsula was enjoyable. It wasn't at the same level, but we're not talking about that today because otherwise we'll be talking about Korean movies for half this podcast and not shitting on the Spike Lee adaptation, which we should be because that's the main focus.
Oh my god.
Here's a suggestion. I have never seen a Western audience directed movie based on an Asian property that's worked. Ring is worse than Ringu. Quarantine is worse than Wreck.
I don't understand the desire to just remake.
It's cash grabs.
It's
also arrogance.
If you think of
unbelievable arrogance.
Let the Right One In and Let Me In. I think they came out within a year of each other or something. Like, it was really close, and it's what it is. And this is tying back to something we've talked about before, because it's something that I know Spectre Vision are really passionate about, which is that there's this whole idea, and it's American audiences primarily.
Yeah.
There's a belief that American audiences just won't watch films in a foreign language.
Yeah.
And we know as well as I do that the dubs of these things, if they exist, are generally not very good.
Yeah.
With the exception, and again, loosely, we talked about this last week. Yeah. Being Studio Ghibli films where they get these, stellar casts and things. But even then it's hit and miss.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of American audiences who would only watch Studio Ghibli films in English.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, there's this idea, and it's almost like coddling them, because I don't think it's necessarily true that most of American audiences won't watch a film in a foreign language. I think it's just that distributors assume they won't, so they don't distribute those films to them, and therefore, they get these Americanized versions of them which are not as good. And they even do it with English properties,
Yeah, yeah.
It's bizarre. And it's something that I know Spectre Vision have talked about, which is why, for example, we watched Open Windows, which is not my favorite film that I've watched, but it was a film by the same guy who made Time Crimes.
Yeah.
And so the kind of thing that they were doing was like, rather than seeing a movie I like and then like going, oh, let's remake Time Crimes in English for American audiences, they were like, let's see how we can work with this director and see what other visions he has.
Yeah.
And I know they did was it A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, which I don't know if that is in English or not. I haven't watched that one yet. But it's set in, I want to say Iran, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, it's this idea that like you can still have these good like indie or art house movies from foreign directors and foreign filmmakers, and there was, if they're good movies and they can be watched by audiences around the world, rather than being like, oh, well, our poor baby audiences won't be able to understand this, we better make it in English.
Yeah. Yeah, Parasite 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah, exactly.
He's fantastic. I mean, he did, like, Okja is in English.
Yeah.
Or primarily in English, it's not entirely in English. It's a mix of languages.
Yeah, and it's also another movie that's
deeply disturbing.
Yeah.
More disturbing than you expected to be.
To the point where, what was it? No, it was Poker Face?
Poker Face?
Not Poker Face. What was the show? where she could tell people were lying.
What?
The TV show we watched where she could tell people were lying.
Oh, yeah, Poker Face. Yeah. Sorry, my brain was like, what? Trying to... equating that to Okja. I was like...
where she ruins that, pitmaster's life by giving him a copy of that movie.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
he watches it and just screams, "I'm a monster."
yeah. She turns him vegetarian, essentially, by getting him to watch one movie.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to convert someone to veganism... It's a good advertisement for it.
Yeah, it's dark.
It's very good. It's very good. Anyway,
so
speaking of movies that aren't good,
it's. I just feel like every single scene that is basically like a borderline copy is just there's no heart into it. There's no. It's like. It's plagiarism, in my opinion. Like, I know a remake is, a remake, but it feels like plagiarism at the point where the person who was plagiarizing it didn't understand what they were plagiarizing.
And that's my problem, is that it really reeks of, I watched this movie and I liked the cool violence and gore in it, as opposed to I watched this movie and got the points it was trying to make. Because, I mean, the original is, like, good. And it's based on a comic, I believe, originally.
Yeah, it's a manga series.
It'd be interesting to see what that is like in comparison. But, it's just really well done. And it's not the most, in terms of, filmmaking, cinematography and things, it's not, very shiny. It's very rough.
It's very gritty.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps the atmosphere of the movie, where you tend to get the opposite end of it, where you get really clean shots in a scene that's supposed to be disturbing to only the character but also the audience, and you're like, I am very anti shaky cam.
Yeah.
I think it is and also this weird trend of people fighting in the dark. And they're both wearing really close clothing, so it's one of those things that when I see in movies, and because I watch a lot of commentary on fights, movie fights, it now stands out to me, and it's one of the scenes that's taking, for a perfect example for people who have watched these kinds of movies, you take any of the fights from the Bourne series. And then you compare it to any fight from, hand-to-hand combat fight with John-Wick. And they're completely different. And they're supposed to be if you were going power level-wise, they'd be they're both superhuman, super soldier people. They're the best of the best. They're an unbelievable, unbeatable killer.
Yeah.
But you get so distracted as an audience member when you rewatch these movies and you know what's going to happen. Watching a movie where the entire camera is basically tilting back and forward and up and down and side to side, where it's just one punch that's been landed. And you're like, what is... did someone check on the camera crew? Are they okay? Did they just we're down on a budget, screw the union, we're just going to get a bunch of people, we're going to go to the retirement home, we're going to need people with Parkinson's, suffering from Parkinson's, fantastic, you'll be the camera operator today.
Can I talk about two parallel sequences in these movies?
Please.
The most famous scene from Oldboy,
oh my God, thank you. Yeah.
Is this? It's a long
as one
tracking shot, one take.
Yeah.
In a corridor,
scene.
Hallway scene, and I've heard about it but never seen it.
Yeah.
And I was at first oh, it's kind of disappointing because he's just getting wailed on for a lot of it, but it's actually very realistic in terms of fighting. It reminded me a little bit of The Raid, but obviously he's not as OP as the character in The Raid, because he's been, in a prison for 15 years. We'll touch on we haven't talked about the plots of the movie. We'll get to that in a second.
He's only been punching a wall for 11 years.
Yeah. And so he's been trying to train himself, but not actually fighting real people, and and he's been malnourished and whatever. And he's one guy against all these people who are clearly used to fighting.
Yeah.
And it's really good. It is really well done. It's very realistic, and it's this really long, and it stands out in the movie because they purposely made it so that every other action sequence in the whole movie, the shots change every 2 to 6 seconds.
Yeah.
And in this one, it's one tracking shot.
Yeah.
In the remake, they try to do the same thing. First of all, they try to make it interesting, I guess, by having him like go onto different levels of this weird weird corridor that you can climb up and down ladders on. Also, they filmed it in one take and then edited it in post and made cuts. And it's like, what was the point in sticking to that one take, one shot formula if then you're going to edit it? But also, I could not take any of it seriously because they were dancing. Yeah. It was choreographed. And I mean, I know a lot of fight sequences are choreographed, especially in Western media. But it was so obviously choreographed that I was like, am I watching West Side Story? Yeah. Like, he'd, like, move his hand and all the guys would all take a step back at the same time and do poses? Yeah. That's not a fight. That's just some guys doing, like, a dance battle. That literally is West Side Story. Again, like, to reiterate my point, it's taking something that is so... I wouldn't say beautiful, but then death is kind of beautiful in the sense of, like, the full cycle of death is beautiful. And just remaking it with losing all of everything that went into it. Yeah. And the whole thing is that every sequence in the original is earned. Mm. There's no just like, oh, now we have an obligatory fight sequence. It's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, like, and even there's a scene that made me very uncomfortable, and I was like, they didn't need this in it, and then by the end of the movie, I was like oh, they needed that in it. Yeah, so basically... the whole story, and again, if you're still listening and you never want to watch these movies, if you've seen the movie, fantastic. The whole thing is revenge. It is the revenge is a dish best served cold, and it is unbelievably cold at this point. Mm-hmm. It is a mystery within a prison story of revenge of the ultimate, like. You know, you think I'm a monster, I'm going to make you the same monster that I am. Yeah. Everything about it is just so choreographed in a way where every single little point and every single little, like, realization that you get as the character, you get as the audience, is so earned. Mm-hmm. And you have earned it through, like, dirt under your fingernails. And then you get the remake, which is just like, oh, and then this happens. Oh, and then you know, oh, in the original story, his buddy gets killed at this point, so we're just going to kill his buddy off. It's like, what? Like, none of this is done in a way, and like, as you say with Shelter Copley's character, it's just, it doesn't seem like it's. Like, I'm losing words because I'm so infuriated. He's been given a bad deal because the character has been edited to shit to be... Yeah. To not make any sense, whereas in the original, it all comes to light and you're like, you know, and you don't get any of that in this one. So you're like, why is he doing this? This doesn't make sense. And then on top of that is the bad performance, and it's like, why am I even watching this? Yeah. So you've made it this far, I don't know, and now I'll tell you what the plots of these movies are. So these are both about a man who, as Nick said, was, you know, a drunk and not necessarily a great guy. In the original, we first see him like in a holding place in a police station. Just being the worst night for the police officers. It was the last scene they filmed, so he was just having a great time with it and improvising most of them. Yeah, trying to pee in the corner and then being in the other naked. One, we get to see a whole thing about him being the advertising executive who's shit at his job, always drunk, and also just chauvinistic pig. Yeah. Anyway, they both then just kind of vanish. Yeah. And wake up in a room where they are being held captive. There's no way out. Someone slides food under the door every day. They get gassed every now and then, and they wake up to, you know, whatever. For both of them, their samples of their DNA and blood and fingerprints are taken, and then they get to find out that they're, I think, in one wife and the other one ex-wife, has been... I don't know, was she raped in the first one? No. So murdered, and in the sequel, raped and murdered. Yeah. and that all the evidence at the scene matched him. And then he has to live in the cell for, in the original, 15 years, because that is the statute of limitations on those crimes in Korea. There you go. And in the sequel, 20 years, for reasons that I can't discuss without spoiling further right now. And then, just has been working on an escape, and in both cases doesn't actually get to do the escape, just gets set free.
Yeah.
And then the whole rest of the movie is him working on figuring out, who did it, why they did it, etc., etc.
It's literally like, would you like to play a game, but in a more well thought out, like, I'm punishing you, but if you give me the answers, the punishment ends.
Yeah.
But the reality is that's the ticket that's sold, but not what the product they buy.
Except in the original, he just himself is trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Right? And then by the end of it, spoiler alert.
Again, it's mollycoddling because it's like the audience is dumb.
No,
so
but
let's just spoon
except that
them.
it's not, because it misses the whole point. Because the whole thing is, he spends the whole movie trying to figure out who is doing this to them and why they're doing it to him. And then when he finally figures that out, the guy's like, you never asked the important question, which is, why did I release you when I did?
Yeah.
Whereas in the other one, he's not even looking for it, and the guy shows up and is like, hey, it's me, I'm the guy who imprisoned you, and I'll give you all this stuff if you can find out who I am and why I did it, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
And then at the end he's like, you never asked the important question. It's like, no, you told him told him to do that.
Yeah.
He just did what you told him to do. That's not the question he was looking for on his own. It's stupid.
It is
stupid.
There is one sequence which was just like, why the fuck is this in the entire movie? So when they're in prison and Josh Brolin makes a friend with a mouse and the mouse gives birth and has babies, and then he wakes up and the mouse is gone, and then his meal is like the mouse and the dead babies, and you're like, why was this so this is like unnecessarily cruel. This is a child pulling like wings off a fly, unnecessarily cruel. Why put that in the movie? Mm-hmm. We already know the people who are holding him in a prison are the bad guys. You don't need to like, did you know they're bad? Here, let them, here, like a moment of joy in his entire life. Oh, we'll make him eat it. Like, what? Just bizarre thought. And it's like a complete ad-lib.
Yeah.
And it just misses the entire point of why, like, these people in the original are just paid to hold on to people.
Yeah.
They're not being, they are being unusually cruel. But it's no worse than a judge being like, oh, I find you guilty, you're going to spend the next 20 years of your life in prison.
It's like that,
There's no difference between the justice system and what they're doing. They're just the jailers.
Was it the Love, Death and Robots? Had a episode that was about a guy who was...
No, it wasn't Love, Death and Robots. It was another show. Was it Black Mirror?
I don't think it was.
It was a
animated.
No, I'm pretty sure it was a Black Mirror episode where he gets mistaken identity and a drone arrests him. I'm pretty sure that's Black Mirror.
I genuinely thought that was animated.
No, it was definitely live action.
Okay, well, you keep going and I'll look that up.
Okay.
It could have been that other thing we watched.
I don't think it was Oat. It might have been Oat Studio. Man, there's just too much of this stuff these days. It's all hard to...
No, do you know what it was?
What?
It wasn't any of those things. We watched it, I think, because it was nominated for an Oscar.
It
was just a short that was nominated for an Oscar, and we don't watch shorts very often, so we were like, oh, it must have been one of these things.
That's right. That's such a... Can you find the name of it?
Yeah, it was a really good film. Is that it? I think it came up straight away. Please Hold.
Yeah, Please Hold. That's right.
Hold.
Yeah.
Yep.
Amazing short.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's a 20-minute short, and it's very, very good.
Yeah. Where was I? Yeah. So it's just it's. You don't blame the jailer for the fact that you're the criminal.
Right.
But in this situation, it's people are being held outside of the law in unusual circumstances.
Yeah.
And it's like the version of like where do criminals put people that they don't want to be in regular jail. They put them in a special place.
It's like an equivalent of a hitman, except that they're...
not dead.
Yeah.
It's
it's the implication, I think, is that normally they're only held there for a short period of time.
Do you know what?
Because in both cases they're like, 15 years, 20 years, that's a long time.
Do you know what it reminds me of a little bit?
What?
another foreign language film that we watched together, and I think it was at the beginning of our relationship, which was The Platform.
Right, yeah.
Where the main character is put in there voluntarily because he volunteers to go into this basically weird rotating prison.
Yeah.
Because he wants to quit smoking.
Right.
And that's like his entire... In the beginning, there's his entire motivation, where all these other people are like clearly insane.
Yeah.
It's a very, very good movie if you want to watch it.
Yeah, it's a little bit like Cube and a little bit like Snowpiercer. Yeah. And that was what drew us to it, because we both like Cube and we both like Snowpiercer.
Yeah. Just the vibe of like the whole lead up to the change of being like, it was so bizarre to me that if this is supposed to be about revenge against Josh Brolin's character, and we know he's an alcoholic, because he is an alcoholic, and for those people who don't know, people who are severe alcoholics can't just go cold turkey. They will literally die. Their body will shut down. There's been several episodes of like television medical shows where they get somebody in and they're comatose, and then, oh my god, doctor, I don't understand, his body's still failing, and the doctor's like, I understand, he's an alcoholic, we have to get him drunk or he won't be healthy anymore.
Yeah, don't trust those for your medical advice. Yeah. Most of them are terrible and not accurate in any way.
True. It's like wet MD, it's always cancer, unfortunately. But he just, like, decides one day that he's going to stop drinking. But why were they giving him alcohol on his platter anyway? It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. Was it just to keep him an asshole? Like, they wanted him to still be the same asshole by the end of it?
But why did the jailers have motivation? Like, did they, like,
no, I assume that was requested by the guy.
Like... Yeah, but that's also weird. You're trying to punish someone, so you're just going to give them the thing they rely on?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense because the movie doesn't make any sense.
Correct.
In the original, the villain is essentially an absolute, like, a legitimate psychopath and sociopath. Yeah. Like, he's... And probably a narcissist as well, to be fair. He's somewhere in that, with the dark triad or whatever.
Having a shower in your office and walking around and basically, like, having this weird office / like, apartment.
It was like a penthouse.
Yeah, it was like a penthouse apartment, but it was also his office, and it was also, like... Because I don't think you see a bed, but you see, like...
In the remake you do.
Yeah, in the remake you do.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about that because you talk about the bad thing. Why? In the original, he has a guy who's with him all the time. This white-haired guy who is like has very quick reflexes and is willing
clearly
to
his bodyguard.
Yeah, clearly his bodyguard, willing to protect him or whatever, do whatever. Has his own kind of stuff going on, and there's things that happen with him. In the remake, he's replaced by just Pomme Clementif in almost transparent clothing half the time. Yeah. And then she does nothing and just dies.
Yeah.
Why?
What is
the purpose of that?
Have you seen The Kingsman?
Yes.
Yeah. Who does Samuel L. Jackson have as, like, his bodyguard?
I don't even remember. It's not the lady with no legs?
Yeah. With
the skis.
Yeah,
that's badass. She can cut your head off with her ski feet.
Yeah. That is like the attitude they were going for.
Except they just made her do nothing.
Yeah. And I think again, like nothing in the remake is earned. It's not earned with the audience, it's not earned with the characters, it's just soulless. Mm-hmm. It's I completely agree with you. But the part I was going to get back to, it's his whole lead up to escaping. So Josh Brolin puts himself through detox by just screaming no one day and then pouring his alcohol down the toilet.
Yep.
Is bizarre. And then he just watches exercise videos and gets... But, like, here's my problem. Josh Brolin is not like a normal looking human being. He takes his shirt off, and even if when he's, like, overweight, and I say overweight with, like, air quotes here...
Slight flab.
Yeah, he looks like Fat Thor. And when he goes into prison, he's like flabbing his like, I'm not flexing man breasts, and rubbing his belly, which even when he's supposed to be like overweight, still has ab definition.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like poking his gut out like anybody who can flex their ab muscles can do to make themselves look fatter.
Yeah.
And his motive, he just like watches women do like 80s exercise videos and gets like super jacked and can also fight after that.
Yeah, so that's
and it makes no sense.
Bizarre, because like in the original, our main character, whose name I've forgotten.
Yeah.
Daesu.
Yeah.
Clearly has some fighting experiences from his past.
Yeah.
And knows how to trains himself. And then when he gets out, he finds like a group of people to be like, oh, and he literally says like, I better see if this, translates to real life ability before taking on anyone who actually matters, and has like a little tiffle with these guys to test it out. He's also Korean, in Korea, has had exposure to martial arts for, throughout his life. Why, when Joe in the remake gets released, he just walks up to a field and starts killing teenage boys with martial arts that he magically knows and is perfect at. He literally just...
Again, like I said, and probably will say 10 more times, nothing in the remake is earned.
He just starts killing teenagers for no reason. He literally snaps their necks.
Yeah.
He kills just these, like... Because what happens is he tries to go after Pom Clementine, and this kid stops him and is like, hey, because he thinks that he's harassing a woman.
Yeah.
Totally normal thing to do. And rather than have a conversation or explain himself or, like, do anything, he just starts murdering high school football players.
Yeah. One of them is definitely dead, and another one is probably a paraplegic, and one of them is, like, life is ruined because he, like, snaps his, like, calf bone or his ankle.
It's bizarre.
And bottles two of them.
Yeah.
It's so... like, everything... like, even the scenes where, like... That is the perfect example when he is released.
Mm-hmm.
The same release method, except for we've had none of the lead up, so the release method is the same. They get put in a suitcase and dumped, and they're wearing nice clothes, and they've got lots of money and a cell phone.
Yep.
Where Daesu is dumped, which is on a roof with a guy who's about to commit suicide, and says a line to him, which is now becomes like an overarching thing.
Yeah.
Is like, I'm the same as a beast, and I deserve to live.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. I can't remember what it was. And there's also that weird. There's a weird poster in his.
Cell.
I was going to say hotel room, but yeah, your cell, which is. If you laugh, the whole world laughs with you, but if you weep, you weep alone.
Right.
That whole thing, and it's like a weird, crazy, like melted Jesus-esque picture.
Mm-hmm.
Versus what Josh Brolin's character gets, Joe. He just gets a
picture of Spike Lee's brother.
Yeah.
In a bellhop outfit.
Being like, how can we make our service better? And that whole thing is like, what? Like, there's like, you've been in prison for 20 years. Wouldn't you be obsessed with the image? Wouldn't you be like, there's so much stuff that is not earned in the remake. And have just like completely lost the point. But yeah, just that opening sequence of being 15 years without seeing or touching another human being. And the guy who's about to kill himself is so freaked out by his appearance of just being like literally crying and touching him and smelling him and being so obsessed with, oh my god, another human being.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Josh Brolin just gets out and just starts murdering people like a toddler would if he was like woke up in the Hulk's body. I woke up and chose violence.
It's bizarre.
But the sequence that I really love, and you can understand of like why people who unfortunately, this is one of those things that happens to people because it's just part of human nature, is eventually you get used to something, and when that something changes, you don't particularly react well.
Yeah.
And this happens to people who have been in prison for a very long time, and then they're released as they don't know how to act in society.
Yep.
I think the best adaptation that I've ever seen of this syndrome that happens to people is in Shawshank Redemption,
right,
where the old man gets released, and he's like, there are cars everywhere, and when I was a child, when I went to prison, there was like one, and it was like on a display, and now they're like running me over in the street. Like, what the fuck has happened since I've been in prison? Because he's been in prison for such a huge technology jump. And it's like, there's the recent, for the young hip people, DMX didn't know how to use a computer because he spent so much time in prison. And now he's used to sell KFC.
They did touch on that in the remake, weirdly enough, because
no, he's able to use an iPhone.
He is at the beginning for some reason, and then later on he doesn't know what it is.
How to use Google?
No, he doesn't know. He doesn't know that it's a phone. I think he just like, I don't know what he thinks it is the first time, but later on he's like, where are the pay phones? Where are all the pay phones? And she's like, oh, what is it you're looking for? And then just Googles it, and he's like, oh, okay. I don't know. It's weird.
My point being, his reaction to seeing a human female, which a human woman is literally the subtitle, so it might be whatever translation it is. He is basically like, if you've ever seen a puppy exposed to a cat, where they just like shrink into the corner, but because he's like been in prison for so long and also incredibly weird, he is like Spider-Maning to the wall.
Yeah, he's like trying to climb back into the wall almost.
And the next sequence you see,
he's wearing her sunglasses.
And she's screaming at a security guard, versus Josh Brolin just has sunglasses in his pocket.
Yeah.
To look cool, to go with his... It's like nothing in the remake is
I mean, I guess it's because it's the first time he's seen the sun in 20 years.
Yeah, but if you're torturing someone, you don't give a shit.
Why would you give him sunglasses?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, but that I think speaks to the bad writing around Charlton Copley's character.
Yeah.
Because why did he do that? Why does he do anything? It's so bad. It's so stupid. Sorry, I was just thinking about it again. Anyway, sorry.
So yes, he gets put on this weird mystery cruise of figuring out why he was in prison.
Yeah.
Who put him in prison?
Which of them?
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Sort of. The act of revenge, the act of like... So, they get introduced to a character. One is a sushi chef, and one is like a humanitarian outreach.
Right, sorry. I thought you were talking about later on. Never mind.
Yeah. So, humanitarian outreach, helping people in communities.
Why are you doing this?
I was being sit forward so they can hear your voice better.
I wasn't even speaking.
Yeah, it's fine. That's why I made that noise. Anyway, yeah, so you get introduced to this character, and there's like this automatic attachment feeling. Again, if you don't want to watch this movie, continue. If you have seen it, you know what I'm about to say. There has been work done in the background to set these two characters up, so when they meet each other, there are going to be attachments. In the original, it is literally done through
hypnosis.
Yeah. And
in the remake, he just kind of hopes it's going to happen.
Yeah. It's so bizarre.
He leaves it way too up to chance for having this, like... Because the whole idea is that you slowly realize... Because you start... When you meet the guy first, you think this guy's just nuts. And then you slowly realize throughout the film, oh, this guy is way ahead of the curve and has planned everything to a T.
Yeah.
And in the remake, you're like, I guess he just hoped this might happen.
Yeah. Yeah, she just happened to be like a couple of... Like, he could have walked in the opposite direction. Yeah. He could have been so starstruck with the fact that he was outside, completely missed the weird lead. And, like, what was the purpose of that? That also doesn't make any sense.
Why? Her being there?
Yeah.
It's because he recognizes the umbrella, and then she gives the umbrella to the guy in the queue.
Yeah.
So that he'll go to the queue.
Okay, so it was...
So that was like, come follow me, and then come over here, and here's where you need to be. But I mean, he could have just been like, oh, that's not her, and walked off.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember that after 20 years about someone's, like, umbrella. And also, like, why was the umbrella in the same style before he went to jail as his home-done tattoo so he can take care of, like, remember...
it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make any sense, versus the other one, which is just, like, this guy's obsession with purple and this weird geometrical pattern, and it's literally on everything throughout the entire movie, and it's all, like, again, remake, not earned. Doesn't understand the point. Bad writing. It's just, through hypnosis, through just, like, bumping into somebody, oh my god, I have to help this guy, then, like, his entire thing is they're together for way longer before he goes and sees his old friend, versus in this, it's just like, oh, here's my card if you ever need any help, because clearly you're hanging out with, like, homeless people, so clearly you're a sick bird that needs, like, nursing back to health. So he just goes and sees his buddy Chucky, and then, like, the weird, like, then he gets into a fight and is injured, so therefore she has to come help him with her doctor friend who's clearly into her. Like, all of it, like, there's so much side plot that doesn't need to be there and doesn't change anything to the story. It's so irritating. Versus the other way around, where...
every single detail is important.
Yeah, from the ringtone being a hypnotic suggestion for him to pass out, the fact that he's like...
No, it was her touching him was for him to pass out. So the ringtone was for him to say something, and then she was supposed to hear that and respond.
So that was the him saying things were her trigger words, and then him touching her... Her touching him was his trigger, and he passes out and wakes up in her apartment and is going through the weird letters that he'd written to his daughter.
No, in the original, he's written journals of everything, every sin he's ever committed in his life.
Yeah, that's right.
Whereas in the remake, it's letters he's written to his daughter.
Yeah, and that's how their relationship starts. I don't know. You want to take over for a little bit before I jump into where the movies keep going, because I'm gonna start screaming in a minute.
I don't know what you're planning to talk about next. So I don't want to take it away from you.
Okay. The dumplings.
The dumplings. The dumplings make no sense in the remake.
The dumplings make
Why are
no
they dumplings?
Sense. Yeah, it's just like, in the remake. No, in the original, he is fed the same takeaway Chinese food. Well, it would be obviously in Korea to be Korean food, but he's just fed the same food every single meal.
Yeah.
There is no vodka, there's no Skippy cornflakes or Frosted Flakes.
Just the same thing.
Just the same takeaway food every single meal, to the point where after eating it for 15 years, he then goes on, the only clue he's ever been given is there was a piece of paper in one of the dumplings that he ended up having that had the word Blue Dragon on it. In the remake, his takeaway Chinese food, which comes from Chinatown, I don't know which Chinatown it is, because I believe there are multiple throughout America in major cities.
Is it ever specified where they are?
No. And he's given the like, it just happens to be a sticker, like, planted evidence that it's dragon, so he, like, tells Elizabeth Olsen to fuck off, and he goes and eats dumplings, and then he finds a place and follows the people back. And this other one, again, nothing in the remake is earned. It is, he vomits once, like, what do you do? But just, like, and then he, like, even the chase sequence is not earned, because he just steals a delivery guy's bike and chases after a car, and goes, like, 2 blocks maybe.
Yeah.
Versus when he finds out when Desu finds out which which place is the right place, which apparently is like 3 restaurants named Dragon in between the two of them. He then has to chase the guy on foot, chasing a guy in a delivery, because he's delivering food to the holding cell which he was kept in as a prison. Again, nothing was earned. Like, the sequences of her being frustrated, confused, the growth that it's not Mia, god damn it, what's her, What is the character's name? What is
in which one?
In the original.
I don't remember.
There's too many names going through my brain.
Mido.
Yeah. All of her character growth of watching this guy she just met on the only clue that the restaurant had Blue Dragon in it, and just eating copious amounts of dumplings and vomiting in alleys, and then just be like, cool, let's go to the next place, and her being like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Versus just him like going by himself, vomiting once, and then finding it randomly. And
he did go with her to one or two.
Yeah.
Because there is scenes where she's there with him and he's eating dumplings and he's like, not the right one.
Yeah. But it's that relief as well as not earned. It's him being, like, enjoying it was so bizarre. Because it's like, what? Why? Why are you, you don't get out of prison and just be like, you know what I'm starving for? Prison food. Like, what?
I mean, maybe you do to some extent because it's what you're used to. You're institutionalized.
Do you know what bugs me the most? Is clearly Oldboy's I don't know if it was the manga or the writing, but it was clearly the inspiration came like a grain of sand or a boulder.
Yes.
Think the same.
Oh my god, that pisses me off so much. All right, so
Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
That's the man getting stuck in prison.
Right. Yeah. So in the original, there's this whole thing where the guy who is punishing him essentially says to him, that it doesn't matter. He's saying, a grain of sand and a rock will sink the same way, or something like that. And then the whole thing is that you find out, spoiler alert, that the reason this is happening is because of something he did while he was in high school. Yeah. And this happens in both of them, but in the original, it's in both cases it's because of a rumor that spread about the sister of this guy. And in the original, the rumor spread initially because he told one person one thing and said he wasn't even sure who the person was. Yeah. And then he left. Yeah. In the remake, he literally went around and told everyone. Yeah. And the whole point of the grain of sand and the rock sink the same is that he's saying that your actions are equally as punishable and equally as wrong for you having just told one person than if you had created the rumor properly yourself and spread it yourself because of what resulted from it, which was, unfortunately, the death of his sister. Yeah.
And again, in the remake, the death of the sister, his entire motivation is not earned and is also way more bizarre.
Yeah, it's so strange. Okay, so I'm just going to go into it. The major spoiler for this film. Well, one of the major spoilers is
there's so many twists and turns.
In the original is that this guy had been having an incestuous relationship with his sister as teenagers. Yeah. And Dae-soo saw them. Yeah. And he didn't know they were brother and sister, but he commented to someone, "Oh, I saw her, having sex." And they were like, "Who? This person?" He's like, I don't know. All I know is she has a red bike." Yeah. And they were like, "Oh," and then spread the rumor around. Yeah. And then her and her brother went to, was it a dam or some kind of, I think it was a dam. Yeah. And she tried to commit suicide and he tried to stop her and then she died. Yeah. In the remake, it's her dad that he sees her having sex with. Yeah. And he just tells absolutely everyone he can get a hold of that she was, fucking someone. Yeah. Everyone. Yeah. That he can, literally everyone in their school, he tells them. And, so he 100% spread the rumor. And then the faculty figured out that it was her dad. Yeah. And so they left the country. And then the dad shot and killed the daughter and his wife. And shot the son, who is the main antagonist. Also, when he went into the daughter's room, she was like, "Dad!" and started unbuttoning her top. And when he went into the son's room, he was like, "Dad!" and started unzipping his zipper, which is completely fucked up. Yeah. And then killed himself. And this guy then blames Josh Brolin's character, Joe, for his family being dead. Yeah. But,
clearly it was your dad that
was
molesting you.
His dad was molesting him and his sister and then shot them all with a shotgun.
And it's played off in a way that is so disgusting that it actually makes the whole thing worse. Mm-hmm. Because Sheltos Copley's character says that, like, you don't understand the love that we had in our family. And it's like, you're a fucking cult member, bro. This is like Children of God
You were abused.
Yeah, you were molested and you blame the entire world for that being taken away from you.
Yeah.
It is the most unbelievably disgusting, vile way to treat the subject.
Yeah. Whereas in the original, his idea is that him and his sister were, in his mind, were in love.
Yeah.
And he is very much depicted the whole way through as a psychopath and a sociopath.
Yeah.
And not understanding these norms or whatever, but he believes they were in love.
Yeah.
And that she killed herself because of the rumor. Oh, because so that it was that she started to think she was pregnant.
Yeah.
So the rumor had grown to the point that people were saying she was pregnant, and she started to believe them and had a phantom pregnancy, and then decided to kill herself. Which is very sad. And the guy is clearly fucked up about this, but like, and it's wrong for him to. It's in both cases, it's wrong for him to blame the guy that he's imprisoned.
Yeah.
But in the original, like, that's the point of it, is that, you know, he destroyed
another person's life without even knowing that he did it.
Yeah, well, he destroyed and it's this idea that, like, you know, he being just a grain of sand, having just done this one action, made this spiral happen, and to this guy, that is equally as punishable as if he had killed her himself. Because
the other thing that the original does so much better than the remake is there is actually no evidence that they ever actually had sex. It could have just been like kids playing, but just being that he doesn't understand because he's got like something going on with his brain, not understanding where the line's drawn. And that, to me, in my headcanon, it never actually had, there was never any incest that actually happened between the two of them.
Right.
And it was just the fact that he spoke the rumour that ruined her mental health and then caused her to commit suicide. Her brother, on the other hand, like you said, feels like he's in love with her because it's probably the only true, like, social interaction that he's had that's actually out of love. Because he's clearly, like you said, narcissistic.
Yeah.
To lead to this point where, you know, he plans all this stuff. The other, Sheldon Copley was clearly, like, as we reiterate, was molested and believes that was the healthy and pure love, and you're like, what?
And surely he would have been sent to therapy after his whole family was murdered, suicided. You know, like, it's bizarre. It's very strange.
Yeah. Rich people get therapy too, guys. Actually, the rich people are the only people who can afford therapy.
The other thing I was going to say was that, like, I think... I don't know, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know.
Just what your thoughts are.
I was going to say, in the original, like, part of the reason that he thinks that he needs to be punished is because he doesn't even remember.
Yeah.
To the point that then the guy's like, no, you must have hypnotized me to forget. And he's like, no, you just don't remember.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got to accept that. To you, it was insignificant. Yeah. To me, it ruined my whole life.
Yeah.
And in the remake, he just was a dick. He just was an absolute dick. Yeah. And he did this shit and, you know, spread all these rumors and then just went off and then, like, surely at some point would have heard about all this but didn't hear about it.
Yeah.
And even to the point that, like, in the original, you know, when he's trying to figure out who this guy is, he's like, I don't recognize him, and his friend, you know, he calls his friend, he's like, no, I don't know that name, or whatever, and then he, you know, and then they figure out that the sister is, you know, who the sister is. And his friend is like, oh yeah, she died while we were in school, and, you know, whatever, and then he talks to one of her friends, and she's like, oh, no, I don't think those rumors were true. I think she had a boyfriend. And then she rings someone else and she's like, well, she says that you're the one who knows who her boyfriend is. And then he's like, oh, and that's when it dawns on him who it is. Yeah. In the remake, like, he he just doesn't remember it, and then his friend calls him and goes, "It's not about him, it's about her, the whore," with no explanation of what the hell he's talking about, and then he gets killed for inexplicably. The guy just rocks up, because
he's waiting.
Because in the original, oh my god, we keep doing this. In the original,
they're covered in bugs.
Yeah, they've been bugged, and they get rid of the bugs.
And I don't mean like physically, like the ants, which also didn't translate over. Because the ants are in the original, but it's mice that are added into the other one.
Yeah.
They're covered in listening devices and tracking units.
Yeah.
And they end up removing them all, which means he ends up going to the internet cafe.
Yeah, so his friend runs an internet cafe, and so the guy is listening over, he's eavesdropping on their conversation, because that's the only way he can find out, and then it's, when they have the conversation about the sister.
Yeah, then he loses it, snaps the CD out of the CD tray and stabs him to death with it.
Yeah.
And then tells him over the phone,
this is your fault that I'm killing your friend. In the remake, he just randomly walks into the bar and just kills him.
Yeah.
Or cuts out his tongue and kills him. And it's like, cool.
Like in the bar.
Yeah.
Him and his bodyguard are in the bar when he's on the phone, and then he just hears the phone conversation and is just like, "She's not a whore," and then murders him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then he has the flashback as well, and he remembers seeing it. But also Elizabeth Olsen is in the flashback with him, watching his flashback.
Just piss poor.
Makes no sense. And then Josh Brolin's in the other guy's flashback.
Yeah, it's piss poor.
It's stupid. Whereas in the original there is a flashback sequence, and it's done in kind of sepia tones, classic flashback, and he's trying to follow his younger self. So also, I don't understand why this is my one complaint about the original. I don't understand why his high school has the stairs from Labyrinth in it. Is that just a memory thing, or is that actually designed with all these stairs?
I think it's from a person who loves brutalist architecture, I can understand why you'd put your stairs outside.
But there's so many stairs. There's a ridiculous amount of stairs.
I was going to, if you hadn't have said it, you literally stole the thought, engram out of my brain. Labyrinth is what it gives me vibes of.
Yeah.
And just that whole sequence near the end of Labyrinth where she's running through the stair, her and Jared are trying to find each other in the stair realm. Unbelievably beautiful image, well done to Labyrinth. But yeah, there was just this very is this Labyrinth? What's happening?
So it's there's enough running up and down stairs and him running up the stairs and seeing his past self run down the other stairs. Yeah. That you're is this the architecture of the school, or is this just weird memory junk happening? It's
also it's not quite Dutch angles, but there's it feels like they were going for this is sort of a dream sequence, but not quite a dream sequence. This is what happens, it's a DNA memory almost. I mean,
it's my favorite dealing of memories in films, as we've discussed in the podcast before, is Kung Fu Panda 2. Where throughout the film he's having these bursts of memory, and they're all in this 2D animated style, and then when he finally actually fully remembers it just switches into the normal 3D. Perfect. Anyway, I feel like that's what they were going for with all the weird running up and down stairs. Yeah. I mean, maybe the school did just have a bunch of stairs anyway, but the fact that they've done this purposely juxtaposing the different stairs feels like just highlighting his I guess battle to try and remember it, because it's so gone from his mind that it's not it's not something that he's thought about in decades.
It's I can understand why they did it this way versus the weird getting projected holograms of your memories on the wall thing they did with the remake. I want you to do an experiment. I want you to remember your high school right in your brain right this second, and you can remember places you used to hang out with your friends, places you had but tell me one significant thing that happened there when you said, recount to me, not to me, but recount in your head any conversation you had that didn't have repercussions on the rest of your life or the other person's rest of their life. No, I love you, you're my first boyfriend, girlfriend, or I succeeded and got top marks, or I failed, I'm my parents are going to hurt me when I get home. None of that. I'm saying random. You can't. It's impossible. It's impossible to have that kind of memory that long back when it's just a throwaway thing that happened.
I'm not that much younger than you, but I can remember lots of things that happened.
Yeah, you can remember lots of things, but tell me when they happened.
Oh, like specifically when?
Yeah, like was it a Wednesday? No.
No, I wouldn't be able to remember that kind of detail.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're not asking him to remember that kind of detail.
For him, it was because it was just a throwaway comment. That's the whole reason that the grain of sand in the stone whole analogy works in that movie.
Whereas it doesn't make sense in the remake that he doesn't remember.
Yeah.
Literally spreading a whole rumor about a person.
Yeah.
To the point that, like, because in both movies they make lists of the people that might have done it.
Grudges, yeah.
And you know, if in the original, if that had been something he'd done, because like that in the original, he wrote out journals of every sin he'd ever committed, and his whole thing then was like, I didn't even think, like, I don't even remember that happening. Yeah. Whereas if he had done what Josh Brolin's character did, that would be in that journal, and he would have been on the list. He'd be like, oh yeah, you're this guy.
Yeah, it's so bizarre that out of all the people he thinks he's screwed over, Josh Brolin's character, never comes up the guy who was a billionaire and was him and his sister went to the school and then they ended up murdered and the dad shot them and it was him that started the rumor that she was having sex with an older person. Like, none of that that's the problem with the remake. Like, nothing, I'm going to say it like 50,000 more times. Nothing is earned.
Yeah.
It's just copy, paste, no heart, no soul. It pisses me off.
Do you want to talk about the big twist?
Me personally?
No,
Do I want me to bring it up?
No, what?
Do you want me to bring it up?
No, I'm happy to talk about it. I'm saying, first of all, do we want to talk about it on the podcast? Second of all, are you ready to do it now?
We've given the audience enough warning.
Yeah, so this is like the major spoiler where, if you haven't seen the movie and you've listened to this point, that's ridiculous. Unless you're literally never planning on ever watching it.
Either of them.
Yeah. We're getting into very disturbing territory here. Here's the big twist, right? And I'm going to go with how it's revealed in the original because it's incredibly well done.
Yeah.
So, in the original, he is planning to, like, kill this guy, and he's figured out why, that he's the one who did in prison and why he did it. Because the reason he didn't kill him earlier, because he tried to, and then the guy was like, well, you'll never know why.
Yeah.
And then he comes, he finds him, he knows why, etc., etc. And then the guy's like, as I said before, you haven't asked the important question, which is why I let you free.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think what order he does it in. I think he shows him the box first and then explains how he did it.
Yeah.
So there's a box that he gets him to open, and when he opens it, there's a photo album, and he opens it up, and it's him and his wife and his daughter. And then as he turns it, it's pictures of his daughter growing up. And as she turns into a teenager, you start to realize this is... Oh, we didn't even talk about it, so I've messed this up.
That's fine.
Because we didn't talk about the gratuitous sex scene.
That's fine.
As he turns this, you suddenly realize this is the girl who's been helping him, the sushi chef.
Yeah.
Who he has fallen for, and she has fallen in love with him, and they have had relations.
Yeah. Of a sexual nature.
And this was the scene that I briefly referenced as, like, when we watched it, I was like, why is this in here? Why is it so gratuitous?
Yeah.
And then you get to this point, you're like, oh no, this is why.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Because it's the cinematography of that entire scene, the dialogue that's in the scene, which is disturbing to you. You were literally cringing in the corner of the couch. And I was smiling because
you knew what's going to happen.
Yeah. Because I'm sassy and evil like that. It's the whole lead up is just to, like, solidify you think I'm a monster.
Yeah.
I've made you the same monster that I am.
Yeah.
So if you are disgusted with me, guess what? You're disgusted with myself. And it's like... It's the only way out of it is literally never letting that person know.
Yeah.
And that's the whole twist of the movie, is he's had a sexual relationship
with his own daughter.
With his own daughter.
Who is 18 years old in the original.
And this guy has literally orchestrated all of it.
Yeah, so he had given them both hypnotic suggestion and pretty much put them together so that they would end up having sex. And he's recorded it. Yeah. Just audio, I believe, in this one. So he plays the... So it's... earlier on, he'd set it up that, like, he pretends he has a motor in his heart that if he presses this button, it'll shut off. And that's, you know, he's threatening to kill himself if the... You know, so that the guy never gets his closure. And so he gets the button then and he presses it. And what it does instead of turning the guy's heart off is play the audio of him having sex with his daughter. Yeah. And it's so horrible. Yeah. It's awful. And in the remake, the same thing happens. But it's not as well done. Because, first of all, when they have the sex scene, Charlotte Copley is recording it on footage and is watching it live and is like, whoa, like all excited about it. It's like, if you don't know what's coming, that's a major spoiler.
The other thing that really bugged me is how to put this nicely? She is almost sexually assaulted before this happens as well, which makes no sense because Samuel Jackson's goons... Oh, that's right. Samuel Jackson is the captor that's keeping him in this hotel thing. Yep.
And Rami Malek is in it for like 2 seconds and gets killed.
Yeah, and screams a lot when a claw-hammered hammer goes into his brain.
Yeah, as you would, I guess.
I want to get back to that in a second. The juxtaposition between the remake and the original of the people who are holding him. She's almost sexually assaulted. He fights them but loses.
And then has sex with her like in the same day.
But it reminds me, and I said it to you when we were sitting on the couch, it is very much like the bad direction of, because she's literally, it's Elizabeth Olsen. Anybody who's straight or gay can realize that, or bi obviously, would be like, she's a very attractive woman. Mm-hmm. She has a bath and is like, hey, muscular dude who hasn't had female touch in 20 years, I need to check your bandages. I'm not going to get changed out of my wet bathrobe.
She's wearing a towel wrapped around her.
And it is exactly the same sequence as Padme telling Anakin that they can't be in a relationship. We're wearing light BDSM gear. And like, who thought that was a good idea, George? Like, you know, oh, sorry, no, it's not George's fault because he wrote it. I'm saying like the Jedi Council are idiots, but that's a completely different movie. An entire series, in fact, with the Jedi Council are idiots. But it's so bullshit. It's not earned. It's not earned.
Yeah. No, it's so stupid.
Yeah, and then they have the sex, and it's not as graphically filmed as the original.
Yeah, because it's also, because in the original, like, they make you watch it. Yeah. You are forced to watch this whole scene, this whole thing take place. In the remake, it's cutting from them to Charlotte Copley to like pictures on the wall. Like, it's bizarre. It's weird. Yeah. And you're like, why? Like, if you haven't seen the original or you don't know what's happening, you'd be like, why is
this so important?
Why is this so important? Why is this guy watching them? Why is he so excited about the fact that they're having sex? Yeah. And it's because he didn't actually put anything into place. He wanted that to happen, but he didn't actually do anything to ensure it, like an idiot.
Yeah, and then you end up at, so the bit I want to cover off, because the juxtaposition, okay. For those who are squeamish and are still listening, I'm going to talk about dental torture for a second.
Oh, yeah.
So
that got me.
When they get to finding the hotel, because this is, again, like, it's before the hallway fight sequence, which is, like, not the best, well...
It's the most well-known scene.
It's the most well-known scene in the original, yeah. And just don't understand it in the remake.
West Side Story in the remake.
Yeah. So he breaks in, he gets a hold of the guy who's been keeping him in prison, and in the remake, he draws lines on Samuel Jackson's neck, and he says to him, I'm going to cut the skin away until I can pull your head off. Mm-hmm. And is torturing him by pouring salt into the wound. Yeah. And you're like, wow, this is like bro literally woke up and chose violence. Because, like, from... The other thing is the original movie, the time frame feels longer. In the remake, he's literally given, like, 8 days.
Well, 2 days? He's given 2 days.
2 days, sorry.
From when the guy comes up to me, he's like, I'll give you all this stuff if you can figure it out in 46 hours.
It was 87 hours when he wakes up on the phone, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, there's a clock on the phone. It might be... I definitely remember it being 80.
Okay, because when he talks to him and tells him to go find out this and this and this, he gives him 46 hours.
Yeah.
And I remember that number because I was like, "That why is he giving him like just less than 2 days?"
Yeah.
That's like weirdly specific.
So yeah, in the original, yeah, and obviously then they escape and blah blah blah, but then the hallway sequence. But in the original, it is so much more ruthless. Mm-hmm. He ties him to a chair and using the claw hammer, literally extracts all of his front teeth. And he's asking him questions and then, torturing him and then asking questions as torture seems to do. And he, comes back later and he's got gold teeth and, this whole, like, he'd speak to my dentist and, like, that whole weird, like, plot point in there. Mm-hmm. And then the secret, like, my favourite is this, like, who's got AB blood? And two of the goons put their hands up and he's like, cool, take your boss, he's lost a lot of blood, you're going to help him. Yeah. And then fights the rest of them. Versus the other one where they're like trying to have like a weird conversation and then it's just given the address versus the being spied on because they literally had a dummy apartment on the other side and they've been watching him the entire time. Mm-hmm. It's just like, oh, by the way, he's at your apartment now, you better go hurry before something bad happens to her. Like, it's... And then they both get paid off. But, like, in the original, he cuts his hand off. Yeah, yeah. And it's like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But the reality is like, why would I care about a hand? I've just been literally given, like, $10 million. I don't give a shit. What did I say? It's not earned. The ending. Brigsby Bear comes to mind.
Yeah, I thought that as well for the remake.
Yeah,
that's literally exactly what I thought. I was like, oh, and I did think that when it was happening at the beginning, but only because we just watched the original.
Yeah.
That because he watches in both movies they watch TV a whole bunch, but in the original he's actually watching TV. In the remake he's watching a fake show that this guy has orchestrated with a fake version of his daughter.
On that point, what really annoys me, and this is like the dumbing down for like the Western, like what I feel is the dumbing down for the Western audience, is what Joe watches on television is garbage the entire time.
Yeah.
He's watching basically like 24-hour long infomercials mixed in with this weird show that the Shelter Copley's made.
Yeah.
On the other hand, through the entire movie, you realise that while he was in prison for 15 years, he was watching better like quality television, and is now super smart on the most random stuff that pops up all the time. Mm-hmm. And it just keeps happening throughout the movies, like little divots of like, wow, you're a really smart dude. It's just like, no, I just watch a lot of television. Mm-hmm. If you said that doesn't exist in the West. I'm sorry. I don't care what English-speaking country you live in. No one is going to, when you give them an explanation of, I watch a lot of television, that's how I know all this cool and information. Yeah. You'd be like, what? No, that's bullshit. You only learn in the West by reading because television is to keep you there so the ad breaks so they can sell more ads.
I will say, while we're on this television thing, both films show sequences of 9/11.
That's true.
I was like, well, we know who didn't do 9/11. Yeah. It's these guys.
So maybe it is supposed to be set in New York.
I don't know. The idea was in the original, it was mostly Korean news and then huge international news.
Yeah.
So the death of Princess Diana, 9/11, things like that. In the remake, it's obviously all American news.
Yeah, there's the inaugurations of Bill, and then W, then 9/11, and then like we won the war on terror and 2 years later. Yeah, and then Obama.
But does he even? We don't even see him watch them, do we? They just kind of flash on the screen.
Yeah, it's
to show that the years have gone by.
Time is going by, yeah.
As opposed to like in the original, Dae-soo actually like learning about what's happening in the world through
multiple tattooing himself sequences versus the one where he's just got all 20 tattoos tattooed on him is not earned.
Yeah, also, Dae-soo, like, once he's there for 1 year, is like, I'm gonna put that one on here and counts them, whereas the other guy, like, 5 years in is like, oh, maybe I'll start
tattooing myself.
Does he even tattoo?
No,
I think he burns himself, yeah. And he's just like, okay, I better put 5 on there, like... Why would you do that when you're already at 5?
So dumb.
It makes more sense like that you're at 1, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to count the years because it's obviously multiple years. And then I know how long I've been gone.
So dumb. Awful dumb.
Bad movies.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, I said that like it was plural. Bad movie.
Yeah. Bad remake.
Bad remake. Just
a
really bad remake.
Yeah.
I don't understand. So I feel like if they had made... I think the problem is that it's a remake. Because obviously there is... a source material.
Yeah.
I think if they had like done a different adaptation of the source material, we'd be having a very different conversation.
Yeah.
But they decided to remake something that was based on source material. I assume didn't even consult the source material based on like all the shit they edited out of it.
Yeah.
And then just missed the point on every beat.
Yeah.
Every single thing they missed the point.
You bring up the word beat, and I want to talk about that for a second. Okay. So in stunt choreography, every move that the stunt performer does is referred to as a beat. It is awful in the new trilogy of Star Wars because the people fight very weirdly, especially in the throne scene fight. There's guys just in the background twirling sticks around, and then like they'll get punched off screen towards the audience. And then they like run around the back and then stand there menacingly waving their glow sticks in the background.
As you do.
And again, like you said, the continuous shot in the remake is they look like they're doing a stage dance. The beats in the original are so gritty and so real. The only other time I've ever seen that sort of like high intensity is from the Raid and the Raid 2.
Yep.
Because it is just so real.
Yeah.
Western fight scenes, like I complained earlier in the podcast, it's either shaky cam or it's so dark you can't see. The one that's really good is now a meme because of what Henry Cavill did, which is when he reloads his arms.
Right,
when he's fighting in the bathroom with Tom Cruise in one of the Mission Impossible movies. And it was so brutal in that movie, they made that entire bathroom out of basically the same material which is currently our recording box, which is like a high compression foam.
Yeah.
So it looks like a bathroom, but in reality it's like a giant padded room. So when they get thrown against walls and thrown against toilets and stuff, it's not a breakaway like plastic toilet, it's literally just foam. And it is so much more ruthless. Like the only equivalence I can think of like times where it goes way too over the top and like to the point of anime where people get punched through walls is like Terminator movies. But that whole hallway sequence and every single fight in the original feels real. It feels like people actually hitting each other, and it is very, very well choreographed. Even the fight sequence in the beginning, like you mentioned, with the kids on the street going like, I wonder if I can actually fight now.
Yeah.
It's so not earned.
Yeah.
The elevator, just not earned. Shelter Copley's suicide isn't earned.
No.
It's just awful.
The
ending is just so missed the point. And do you want to talk about the ending difference? Like the big, where the whole, like, throw away the remote, like this movie is awful movie difference?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So in the original,
he goes to the original hypnotherapist
yeah,
who has trained him and says to him, stare at the tree, it'll become a concrete pillar, and then I want the two sides of you, the person before, the person
so she says the person who knows the secret is the monster, and the person who doesn't know the secret is Daesu.
Yeah.
And the monster is going to turn around and walk away. Every step he takes is he's going to age 10 years, or age 5 years, and then when he turns 70, he will die.
Yeah.
And it will just be Daesu left.
And then when she comes and grabs him,
he's
the one who's been walking.
Yeah.
And then she holds him, and he does the same creepy, fucked up smile from the poster, and it reiterates again that when you laugh, the whole world laughs with you, but when you weep alone.
Yeah.
And it is literally, he's been separated into two, it's open to interpretation, like the end of Inception level, but it is to my interpretation is, oh my god, he just accidentally deleted the good, he is literally just the person who only remembers now. In the remake, for some reason, Shelto Copley's given him $20 million in diamonds.
Yeah.
Which is, what? And then he just
writes her a letter.
And
it's sorry, I can't see you again.
And then
here's some diamonds. Bye.
Gives her 80% of the diamonds, and then gives 10%, 20% of the diamonds to the guys to put him back in prison.
He just puts himself back. He pays for them to put him back in the cell. Why? I guess the idea of it is that he feels that he has sinned more now than he had when he was put in there in the first place, so he deserves this or whatever. But it's again, like you said, not earned. We don't actually see him go through torment really with it. Yeah. He just is oh no, and then Charlotte Copley dies, and he's okay, well I'll take these diamonds and I'll go do this.
Yeah.
It's what? Excuse me.
Yeah, the what is it? 6 stages of grief.
Those 5 stages, I don't know.
The stages of grief.
Yeah.
He goes through them after the realization that he's committed.
In the original.
Yeah, in the original. Yeah. He goes through them.
To the point that he was told initially the reason he was put in the thing was because he talks too much.
Yeah.
And then we find out it's because there's this rumor that's spread. He literally cuts out his own tongue.
That's at the end, though. The whole sequence up to it.
He goes through anger, bargaining, etc.
Yeah. All of it. It's just so well done, and the remake, it's just not earned.
And the whole time, the guy, because he is a psychopath, is just laughing at him.
Yeah.
When he's literally begging him, and then telling me he's going to kill him, and then being I'm so sorry, I didn't mean that. I'll do anything, I'll lick your shoe, and then he puts out, all this stuff.
And he's literally just laughing into the purple, handkerchief, just he's overjoyed of just this person he's literally destroyed mentally.
Yeah, he's I have broken him.
Yeah.
I have succeeded.
And then he cuts his tongue out, and then he gets in the elevator and kills himself. Versus Shelto Copley's all oh cool, you know the truth now. Your wife was an actor, your daughter was an actor, you had sex with your daughter.
Bye.
Bye, bang.
He quotes Hamlet and then kills him.
Not earned. Fuck you, Spike Lee. I'm sure I've seen other Spike Lee movies. I'm pretty sure of them was Windwalkers, which is the most hilariously stupid.
I don't know what Spike Lee films I've seen. I'm sure I've seen that. Because did he do Black Klansman?
Possibly.
I watched that. I know I've seen that.
So,
that's decent.
Yeah, just...
but I don't know if I've seen anything else he's done. I might not have.
Filmography. She's Gotta Have It, School Days, Do the Right Thing. Okay, so I've seen Malcolm X from 92. Okay, so other than these two movies, that's the only ones I've seen.
Which means these two?
Malcolm X and Oldboy.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure I'd seen other things he's done.
I've seen The 25th Hour.
What the hell is that?
Which weirdly, so The 25th Hour, I watched because a friend of mine told me that I'd like it. And then afterwards I was why do you think I'd like that? And he was because he names his dog Doyle. And weirdly, in this movie, the main antagonist, when he looks at his picture in the yearbook, he's I forgot his name. His name is Adrian Price, I think, or Adrian Prince.
Right.
And it's Adrian Doyle Prince, and then the Doyle is never mentioned.
Right.
So maybe Spike Lee just likes the name Doyle.
Oh, sorry. No, I've done a bad.
What?
It's John Woo who does Windtalkers.
Okay. I haven't seen that
again,
either. So.
Awful, so they just blended in my mind because I tend to try and stay away from watching junk food.
Fair enough.
Which is just stuff that's bad for you. I tend to be pretty good these days. I try.
Not watching junk
food.
Well, you do it in the form of YouTube shorts.
That's true, but the YouTube shorts I've been watching are like down to like the algorithm understands that I'm going to downvote everything that I don't like, so it only gives me things that I do enjoy.
Okay.
And most of the time they're semi-educational,
okay.
and then the rest of the time they're memes or cooking videos.
Yeah.
What would you? Oh, this is going to be fun. What would you rate the first Oldboy? Because this would be the third time I've seen it, and the first time you've seen it, and obviously I never wanted to watch the remake.
7.5 out of 10.
And what would you rate the remake?
Are we talking as a film or as a remake?
As a standalone, as it was hot and piping hot and fresh like a pizza served to the audience.
It's hard to think about it without thinking about how bad it is in comparison to the other one.
Yeah.
No, I feel like if I didn't know what was going on from having watched the original, it would have made no sense. It's bizarre. 2 out of 10. I'm trying to think about it. I'm like, no, most of what I got out of it was knowing where things were going.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like, what? Why is he doing... Oh, okay, what?
Yeah. Thank you for joining us for the remake series.
Do you not want to do any...
Have you got trivia? What was this? There's no box office equivalent.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to do box office equivalents. There's no point in that. Yeah, I've got trivia.
Sweet.
So on the topic of you were talking about the rawness of the fight scenes and things in the original. Part of that is because the main actor Choi Min-sik did most of his own stunt work. He trained for 6 weeks and lost 20 pounds to get in shape for the role.
That's how you do it in Western movies.
There's also multiple pieces of trivia about the octopus scene, which we haven't mentioned.
Yeah.
Which is when he first goes to the sushi place, he says, "Give me something alive."
Yeah.
And she gives him an octopus, and then as she's asking him would he like her to slice it up, he just like shoves it in his mouth, and there's literally a live octopus like wriggling on his face and whatever. So for that scene, 4 live octopuses were eaten while they were filming, so must have done 4 takes of it. It apparently was very controversial internationally because people were like, what the hell? But it is quite common in Korea to eat live octopus. Yep. But it is normally sliced. Yeah. You wouldn't normally just shove a whole live octopus into your mouth.
Yeah, there was something recently where a girl tried to do it on live and the octopus attacked her and bit her face. And I'm like, good job. Well done, octopus. Because, like, if you're going to eat something while it's still alive, it has every right to try and eat you back. Yeah. That is my, like, even as a person who, like, has a different diet to most people, like, if something tries to kill you because you tried to kill it and it kills you, that's your fault. Yeah. You suck.
So Choi Min-sik, the main actor who plays Dae-soo, is a Buddhist. So he had to do a lot of praying after he ate the octopi. Fair. But he still did it, I guess. It's a decision. And also, the film won the Grand Prix at Cannes, and the director thanked the octopedes along with the cast and crew, which I thought was funny. I touched on this briefly, but in quiet scenes of the movie, the shots are 10 to 15 seconds long, and in almost every action scene, they're 2 to 6 seconds long between cuts, except for, obviously, the one single shot corridor scene, which is very cool. And then this one I just thought was good, which is that the last scenes of the movie, where he's on the mountain in the snow with the hypnotist, filmed in New Zealand. Yep. There you go. And during the end credits, there's just sound of wind. That's also recorded in New Zealand, and he was just amazed by the place and the sound, and he wanted to share that with the audience.
That's something your mother touched on recently that I thought was hilarious, because as a person who lives here, in the windiest city in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We just have wind like all the time.
Yeah,
and it's really weird.
And because she's just visited, and her take on it was that like you do get wind sometimes in Ireland, like you do get strong wind sometimes in Ireland, but it goes away. Yeah. Whereas here, when it's windy, it stays windy. Yeah. That's just what it's like for the day or the week or whatever. It is windy here, very windy. But yeah, so the director literally was just so impressed by New Zealand that he wanted to share as much of it with the audience as he could, even though they were only filming those last sequences here. In terms of the remake, it's mostly Elizabeth Olsen quotes that I got here. I will say, I'm trying to look through things that aren't the Elizabeth Olsen quotes. I already touched on that Adrian's last line, the rest is silence, is a quote from Hamlet, which, is also about revenge, and there's suicide and there's incest and, whatever, so it's obviously touching on that. The big reveal, obviously, is quite different, and the... what was I going to say about it? Oh, yeah, the age difference, which I did touch on earlier, obviously has been extended to 20 years so that they could have the person he has the relationship with, who's his daughter, is in her 20s. It's supposed to be an 18-year-old, which I think would have been not great.
Not palatable for the West. Yeah.
So the Elizabeth Olsen things. So first of all, she didn't know the end of the film. No one ever told her the end of the film.
Wow, that would have been fucked up.
It was... The first time she found out about it was when she went to the film premiere.
That's fucked up.
So they went to the premiere in New York City, and what she said was, I've never been more shocked and surprised by an ending since maybe like The Sixth Sense. No one spoiled it for me, no one hinted at it for me, and I got to experience it just a blank canvas. The other thing from Elizabeth Olsen is that she has discussed her nudity and sex scenes in this movie. And says she's no problem being nude on camera, but she chooses to only disrobe for roles that make her feel empowered. And then what she said about that is she doesn't do anything that's sexy or anything that's where she's supposed to look appealing. So the quote here is, I truly believe in the films I've chosen to be nude in, it helps to tell a more grotesque story. There's nothing gratuitous about it, and it creates the opposite of pleasure. I found that empowering. So she only will get naked and do sex scenes if it's disgusting. She literally just wants to creep people out, and she's like, I will use my nudity to be grotesque.
I think that's pretty... Maybe the two of them had a conversation, but, like, have you seen Under the Skin?
No. Oh, yeah, no, I have. We watched it together. Yeah. So Scarlett Johansson.
Like, that, like, everybody, like, because obviously she is a very attractive female actor, and, you watch all these movies with her in, like, extremely tight clothing, and you find out there's a movie and she's going to be, like, nude in it, and you're like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for.
You watch it and you're like, oh dear God,
yeah,
oh no.
Dear God.
Under the Skin is great.
Yeah.
It's so disturbing. She also said that she thought it would be weirder for, the sex scenes were probably weirder for Josh Brolin because he has a daughter around the same age as her. So she's like, I'm sure it was weird for him and his daughter for that to be happening.
It's not weird for Leo. Oh, shots fired.
It's funny that you mentioned Scarlett Johansson, because one of the things that I forgot to bring up is that obviously there's a lot of Marvel actors in the remake of Oldboy, because you've got Thanos, you've got Scarlet Witch.
That would be an awkward conversation of just being like,
Mantis.
Hey Josh, haven't seen you since you were my dad and we had sex. And people were like, what the...
Who else? There was someone else I think that was in it. That's in. No, I've forgotten now. But there's at least So Pom Klementieff, obviously Mantis. You've got Josh Brolin. You've got
who's Cable and also Thanos.
Yeah, Wanda Maximoff.
Yeah.
I feel like there was, when I looked at it before, there was 4, but I can't remember. I literally forgot blanked who else is in the movie, I guess. But yeah, so it's funny that it's Thanos and Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
Playing father-daughter.
Yeah, you took
people.
Everything from me. I don't even know who you are.
does make it would be funnier to rewatch that now.
Yeah.
I've only watched those films when they came out in cinema, but like that would be, yeah. All right. Do you want to end it there?
Yeah, we've touched on some pretty disturbing things.
Yeah, there will be. I mean, there will be lots of warnings in the show notes.
But if you enjoyed us talking into your little ears, you can find us in places, including our website at takes2.co.nz, and on Twitter and Facebook, which we've been getting a lot of people following us on Facebook, which is good. There's good growth there. What's our Twitter handle there, Lisa?
I will be honest, I have not used Twitter in a while.
Oh, okay. Well, no, fair enough.
Twitter has gone to shit.
Sorry, yeah. I'd completely forgotten about that.
You erased it from you had a hypnotist erase it from your mind.
Yeah.
The Nick that remembers Twitter has walked in a different direction. I do use Tumblr quite a bit.
That's right.
We have got a Tumblr.
Just find us on our website. It takes two.
Our website has links to all these other places.
Yeah.
Also, the show notes to the episode will have links to all these places.
Wonderful.
And we have a Discord server you can join.
Thank you for suffering with us.
I hope if you've made it this far that you have already watched these movies or have no intention of... Well, by now you probably have no intention of watching them. But we did warn you.
Yeah, multiple times.
All right, this is a long episode, and I'm sorry. Goodbye.
Good night. Goodbye.